The castle of Noctira trembled as the relic cracked. The light faded into darkness. The crimson sky outside deepened until it almost turned black. The air filled with a low humming sound that made even the bravest soldiers clutch their chests in fear. King Calith stood frozen, holding his trembling son. Alara lay on the cold marble floor, her skin pale, her breathing weak. The relic beside her was broken, its light bleeding out like silver smoke. Aaron, now hearing for the first time, was terrified. Every sound was too loud. The thunder, the heartbeat, even the rustle of his own breath. He clung to his father, his small body shaking. Calith shouted for help. He ordered the court healer to bring everything, potions, charms, old scrolls, but no magic could stop what had begun. The relic had awoken something older than all of them. A wind rose inside the castle, carrying whispers. Not voices of the living, but of the forgotten. They spoke in echoes, soft and broken. Return the debt. Return the sound. Return what was taken. Alara's eyes fluttered open. She looked up at Calith and whispered weakly, "It has begun again." "What has begun?" Calith demanded. "The curse of the echo," she said softly, her voice fading. "It binds souls who borrow what was never meant to be borrowed." Then her eyes closed. The king lifted her gently and carried her to the high chamber, where the eternal moonlight poured through the roof. The royal healers surrounded her, but Calith stopped them. "Leave," he commanded. "She came to help my son. I will not let your fear destroy her." The healers bowed and left. The room grew quiet except for Aaron's soft breaths and the slow rhythm of Alara's heart. Days passed. Alara slept without waking. The prince stayed beside her, refusing to leave. He would touch her hand, whisper her name softly, and wait for her eyes to open. He had learned her name not through her voice, but through her kindness. King Calith watched from the shadows, guilt and confusion twisting inside him. He had ruled for centuries, but he had never felt this helpless. His son could now hear, yet every joy was poisoned by the fear of losing the one who gave it. The court demanded answers. "She is a witch," they said. "Burn the relic. End the curse before it spreads." Calith silenced them all with a glare, but deep inside he was afraid they were right. One night, the old royal seer appeared before the throne. His eyes were blind, but he saw truths that others could not. "You played with the relic of the ancients, my king," the seer said. "The heart of echoes does not give without taking." The boy's hearing came from her soul. Her life is now tied to his. Calith's heart froze. "You mean if she dies?" The seer nodded slowly. "Then the boy will lose not only his hearing, but his voice, his will, and his light. His silence will become eternal." The king turned away, his jaw tight. "There must be a way to break it." "There is only one way," said the seer. "The one who carries the curse must choose to give up their immortality." The words struck Calith like a blade. He had ruled for over 600 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. His immortality was his throne, his strength, his curse. To give it up would mean to die as a man, not as a king. The seer's final words echoed in his mind. To break the echo, one heart must fall silent forever. In the days that followed, Calith stayed close to Alara's bedside. He watched her struggle to breathe. He watched her little daughter, Aaron, sit beside her mother and hum soft songs. The prince sat near Aaron, learning the rhythm of sound, sometimes humming with her even if his voice trembled. It was a strange sight. The vampire prince and the mortal girl, sitting side by side, bound by a curse neither understood. Alara's spirit grew weaker each day, but her face remained peaceful. It was as if she knew this was always her destiny. Calith could not understand her calmness. One night he sat beside her and spoke softly, though he knew she might not hear. "Why did you come here, Alara? You could have lived quietly far from this cursed land." Her eyes opened slowly. She smiled faintly. "Because silence follows me," she whispered. "And I thought, maybe I could teach someone not to fear it." Calith's heart stirred. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not without fear, not without bowing. He looked at her fragile form and felt a pain he could not name. It was not love, not yet. It was something deeper, the recognition of a soul that refused to kneel even before death. He reached out, touching her hand gently. "You have given my son a gift I could not. Tell me how to save you." Alara shook her head weakly. "You cannot save me without breaking what binds you." Calith frowned. "What binds me?" "Your immortality," she whispered. "You have never let go of anything." Not grief, not guilt, not power. You built your eternity out of fear of loss, but eternity built from fear becomes a prison. Her words cut deep. He had never been spoken to like that. Yet he did not grow angry. He only sat quietly watching her sleep, hearing the soft breaths of his son beside her. But the curse was growing stronger. The heart of echoes had cracked, and its power began to spread across Noctira. The mist thickened. The moon turned darker. The souls of the old vampires began to whisper again, crawling back into the world. They followed the sound of the prince's heart. At night, Aaron heard them, faint voices begging for release. He would wake crying, hearing words no one else could hear. Caliph would rush to his side, holding him close, whispering, "It's all right, my son. You're safe." But even the king could hear faint echoes now calling his name. The past was waking. One night, the voices grew too strong. The castle windows shattered. Shadows took form. Old kings, old queens bound by the ancient echo. Their faces were pale, eyes hollow, filled with sorrow. They spoke together, their voices blending into one terrible song. Return the silence. The sound was stolen. The debt must be paid, Aaron screamed. The sound shattered the air. The voices wailed, swirling around him like a storm. Alara woke suddenly, her eyes glowing faintly with silver light. She rose weakly and stretched her arms toward the boy. "Let it come to me," she whispered. "Let me carry it again." Caliph stopped her. "No, you will die." She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Then let me die free," but the king would not allow it. He stepped forward, his cloak of shadows spreading wide. He faced the storm of echoes and shouted in a voice that shook the world, "Take me instead." The voices froze. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The shadows turned toward him. The ancient power inside the castle stirred, recognizing the words of a king's oath. Caliph stood tall, his crimson eyes burning with something fierce and pure. He turned to Alara. "You said eternity built from fear is a prison. Then let me break it." He lifted his hand toward the heart of echoes. The broken relic rose from the floor, its pieces glowing faintly. He closed his eyes and whispered, "I give back my eternity. Let silence take me, not her." The relic burst into light. The shadows screamed as the light spread through the hall. Caliph's body glowed, his form dissolving into thousands of black feathers. His crown fell to the floor, and for a moment everything went still. Aaron stopped crying. The voices were gone. The air grew calm again. Alara collapsed beside the boy, tears streaming down her face. She felt the warmth of life returning to her chest. The curse had been lifted, but Caliph was gone. Only one feather remained, black and glimmering in the moonlight. Years passed. The kingdom healed slowly. The mist cleared. The twilight grew softer. Prince Aaron grew older, kind and gentle, ruling beside Alara, who raised him and her daughter together. He could not hear anymore, and the gift had faded when his father vanished, but he was no longer afraid of silence. Sometimes, late at night, Alara would sit by the window, the black feather in her hand. The wind would move gently, carrying a whisper she could almost hear. In silence, "I found my heart," she would smile softly, whispering back, "And I found mine in yours." Final scene. Cliffhanger. On the night of Aaron's coming-of-age ceremony, the sky of Noctira darkened once again. The moon burned red. The wind turned cold. And from the edge of the forest a tall figure appeared, cloaked in shadow, eyes glowing faintly crimson. Alara froze, the feather trembling in her hand. A deep voice spoke from the mist, familiar, ancient, and filled with longing. "Did you think silence could keep me forever?" Her heart skipped a beat. The Vampire King had returned, not as a ruler of the night, but as something reborn between life and death, drawn back by the only echo that never fades, the echo of love. The next few days passed in a blur. Alara tried to pretend that life was normal again, but nothing felt the same. The restaurant closed without warning. Marcus disappeared. The police came once, asked a few questions, and left without answers. No one seemed to care much, but whispers spread through the city. Strange lights at the crimson hour, glass bursting, a man vanishing into thin air. Alara stayed inside her small apartment most days, staring at her wrist. The moon-shaped mark was still there. Some nights it glowed faintly, pulsing like a living thing. When she touched it, she felt warmth spread through her chest and an echo of someone's voice in her mind. Calm, deep, and sad. You are not alone. She didn't know whose voice it was, but she felt it watching over her, like an unseen guardian in the dark. The silent watcher Lucien had not returned to the Crimson Hour since that night. He watched Ilara from afar, hidden in the shadows of rooftops and mist. He told himself to stay away. The ancient laws of his kind were clear. Vampires could not protect humans touched by moonblood. The last time one had tried, kingdoms fell and oceans burned. Yet every night his steps led him near her street. He could not help it. The bond had already formed between them, invisible but strong. Her fear, her sadness, her dreams. He felt them all like faint whispers in his own mind. Lucien's existence was one of silence. Once, long ago, he had ruled as a king among immortals. He had loved a mortal woman who betrayed no one but the gods themselves to be with him. For that love he was cursed, doomed to live forever, losing everything he ever cared for. His heart had turned to ice long ago. But now, because of Ilara, cracks had begun to appear in that ice. The night of the chase-it was on the third night that things changed again. The moon was high, full and silver, bathing the city in pale light. Ilara couldn't sleep. She kept hearing faint sounds outside her window, whispers, footsteps like someone pacing below. Finally, she opened her curtains and gasped. In the street below stood a shadow with glowing yellow eyes. It was tall, inhumanly thin, its body wrapped in smoke. When she blinked, it was gone, but the cold it left behind stayed. She stepped back, frightened. Then, before she could move, her window cracked open on its own. A gust of cold air rushed in, carrying with it a faint voice that hissed, "The moonblood is awake." Suddenly, darkness filled the room. A shape moved within it, one of the old creatures drawn by her awakening power. It stretched long, clawed fingers toward her, its form more shadow than flesh. Before it could touch her, the door burst open. Lucien stood there, eyes burning crimson, cloak billowing like black flame. With one command, the shadows screamed and vanished into smoke. His power filled the air, silent, royal, terrifying, but somehow beautiful. Ilara trembled. "You again," she whispered. "You were watching me." "I had to," Lucien said, his voice calm but urgent. "They have found you. Others can smell your blood now. You are no longer safe alone, the shelter of shadows." He offered his hand. "Come with me. I will take you somewhere they cannot reach." Ilara hesitated. She remembered his strength that night in the restaurant, the way the air itself bowed to his will. But something inside told her to trust him. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. The moment she did, warmth surged through her arm, chasing away the cold. The world blurred, shadows wrapped around them like wings. And when the light returned, they were standing somewhere else entirely. They were inside an old cathedral deep underground. Its walls were made of silver stone, carved with symbols that glowed faintly like stars. Candles burned without fire, and water flowed upward in the air like a living river. Ilara looked around in awe. "Where are we?" Lucien's voice echoed softly through the chamber. A forgotten place. It was once a temple of balance, where mortals and immortals made peace long ago. Only I still remember it. She walked toward the floating water and saw her reflection. Her silver eyes shone brightly now. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why is this happening to me?" Lucien looked at her, his face unreadable. "Because your blood carries the last spark of a power that even the gods feared, the blood of the moonbound line. It was born from the union of light and darkness. From me and someone like you." Her breath caught. "Someone like me?" He nodded slowly. "A mortal woman I once loved. She was your ancestor. When she died, the gods punished me and her bloodline was hidden among humans. I never thought I would see it again, until I saw you." The truth and the curse. Ilara took a step back. "You're saying I'm part of your curse?" Lucien's eyes dimmed, full of sorrow. "You are not the curse. You are the end of it." He walked to the altar in the center of the room. On it rested a silver blade and a small glass orb filled with red light. "The curse binds my life to the night. If I drink human blood again, the world will drown in darkness. But if one of the moonbound willingly offers light instead, I can be freed." Ilara's voice trembled. "You mean..." If I help you, you'll die? Perhaps, he said softly. Or perhaps I will live as something new. I do not know what the gods will choose, but your soul is already tied to mine. When the bond began, you took part of my eternity without knowing it. Elara felt tears rise in her eyes. That's not fair. I didn't ask for this. Lucian looked at her with quiet pain. Nor did I, little light. Yet here we are. Silence filled the cathedral. Only the sound of the floating water remained, soft and endless. The choice Lucien turned away, his cloak brushing against the floor. You should go back. Forget this place, forget me. I will fight the shadows myself. But Elara shook her head. You said they'll keep coming. If I go, they'll find me again. If I stay, maybe we can end this together. He looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. You would risk your life for me? I don't know why, she said honestly. But I feel like I've known you before. Maybe in another life. Maybe in a dream. Lucian smiled faintly, the first real smile in centuries. Perhaps you have. The blood oath, they stood before the altar. The silver blade glowed between them. Lucian's voice was soft. If you truly wish to help me, you must speak the old words. It will bind our souls. Once spoken, there is no return. Elara swallowed her fear and nodded. Then tell me what to say. He took her hand. Their fingers barely touched, yet a surge of energy rushed through them, filling the air with light. Together they whispered the ancient vow, a language of stars and shadows. The orb on the altar began to shatter, releasing a beam of white fire that wrapped around them both. The ground trembled. Lucian gasped as the curse inside him started to break. The mark on Elara's wrist burned brighter than ever, spreading up her arm like living silver. The gods themselves seemed to awaken. Their voices echoed in the walls. Light and dark cannot exist apart. One must give, one must fall. Lucian looked at her with sorrow. They're demanding a sacrifice, Elara shook her head. No, there must be another way. But the light grew stronger. Lucian's form began to fade, his immortal energy unraveling. He smiled gently. If my death gives you freedom, then let it be so. No, Elara cried, reaching for him. I can't let you go. The dawn fire. She caught his hand just as his body began to dissolve into light. Her tears fell onto his skin, and where they touched, his fading form steadied. The gods' voices trembled in surprise. Elara whispered, You once gave me the night. Let me give you the dawn. Her light flowed into him, not as a sacrifice, but as a sharing. The burning white turned into soft gold. The curse shattered completely. Not by death, but by love that neither darkness nor divinity could destroy. The cathedral exploded with light. Then silence, epilogue, the sunrise promise. When Elara opened her eyes, she was lying in a quiet field near the sea. The city was miles away. The morning sun rose for the first time without fear in her heart. Beside her lay a silver rose, warm to the touch, glowing faintly, the last trace of Lucian. She held it close, tears of both grief and peace running down her face. Months passed. She opened a small seaside bakery, where she worked in calm days filled with sunlight and the scent of bread. The nightmares were gone, but sometimes when the wind blew, she thought she heard a soft voice whisper her name. One evening, as she closed the shop, the bell above the door chimed. A man stood there, tall, calm, with gentle eyes. He had no shadow. Can I sit for a while? He asked softly. Elara froze. That voice, she would never forget it. He smiled faintly. You once promised me the sunrise. She stared at him, tears glimmering. And you once promised me freedom. The silver rose on the counter glowed faintly between them. Outside, the sea reflected the colors of dawn. Somewhere beyond mortal sight, the gods bowed their heads. Love had rewritten the curse.